either at office or at home or in society. So there is a natural phenomenon. It occurs. And when the stress is at a moderate level, at minimum level, there is nothing to be worried. There's nothing to worry. That moderate stress is required. It is also called positive stress or eustress. Because if there is an amount of small amount of stress, it enhances the concentration of the people, motivation of the people. They will focus more on the problem. But the stress will be definitely a problem when it exceeds the limit. When the stress level is very high, that will be a problem. That causes a lot of damage to the body and psychologically and socially. It affects our social relationships. It affects our mental health. It affects our physical health. When the stress level is high, that is called distress, or it is called negative stress. So that means two types, that is positive stress and negative stress. The negative stress, that is when the stress level is very high, that's really a problem to the person. And that has to be managed. As I said, stress is a common phenomenon that all people face. They experience this stress in our day-to-day life. So people must learn how to manage the stress, how to face the stress. So stress management is most important because that stress is a natural phenomenon, that is a common phenomenon that occurs. So people must learn, they must have knowledge and skill to cope with stress, to manage the stress. Simply, you must know this stress management techniques, stress management strategies, so that the ill effects of the stress, ill effects of the stress can be controlled. When you practice stress management techniques, negative consequences of the stress can be avoided or controlled. Or stress, the impact of stress on body and the mind can be reduced or removed through coping strategies, coping techniques, that is stress management techniques or strategies. There are different categories, different classifications or types, different categories. One is approach and avoidant. Approach and avoidant coping. What is this approach avoidant coping? The approach avoidant coping is the approach is facing the stress and practicing certain techniques, practicing certain techniques and strategies to reduce or remove the impact of stress. That is approach, facing the problem or facing the stress, experience facing the stress, and practicing certain techniques to reduce or remove the stress, the impact of stress. Whereas the other one, the avoidance. What is this avoidance? It's just a denial, avoiding the problem, denying the existence of the stress, telling that there is no stress at all, though there is stress. That is one thing. So this other thing that we have to know when to approach, when to avoid, and what are the benefits, advantages, disadvantages of approaching and avoiding it. Since there is evidence to support that the hypothesis that avoidance is better than approach if this situation is uncontrollable. When you can avoid it, when the situation is uncontrollable, then this type of technique, denial or avoiding the problem, is applicable. That means the stressful situation is uncontrollable, whereas approach is better if there is potential control. If there is possible to control it, situation is under control, then we can follow the technique of approach. The implication is that approach allows us one to take advantage of opportunities for control. Illnesses such as asthma, diabetes, cancer require approach and vigilance for proper diagnosis and treatment. With other illnesses such as paralysis, there is no advantage of approach, whereas avoidance serves to reduce anxiety and depression. And other thing is, denial may be helpful only in a limited time frame. It is short term. Denial is short term. Avoidance is short term. And avoidance is also often valuable form of coping during the initial period when emotional resources are limited. However, to summarize, approach strategies are observed to be more effective when the outcome measures are long term. If you want long term solution, permanent solution, or long term solution, one need to follow the technique of approach. The other one is avoidance. Avoidance, as I told you, it is only short term. It is useful only for limited period. The advantage is only short term. It is not a long term solution. It is only a short term solution. Okay, when you have decided to approach or to solve the or to cope with the stress, what are the ways of coping with stress? What are the ways? There are different ways, not one or two. There are different ways of coping with stress. For example, simple one all of us know is meditation or relaxation. Biofeedback is another technique, biofeedback, that can also be used to as a technique of stress management. Biofeedback and physical exercise. These are all very simple one. And social support. What is the social support? See, social support, seeking social support, getting social support is also one of the techniques to cope with stress, to manage the stress. What is the social support? What do you mean by social support? Social support, we mean here getting support from family members, getting support from the friends, seeking support from the colleagues in the office, like this. So we need to seek social support or get social support. That is also one of the techniques to manage the stress. And the other technique, we will discuss in details the each one technique. Using thought process to control physiological response. That is thought process. You have to change the thought process. Engaging in physical activity, we have already told, or help or assistance from other people. And cognitive restructuring is another thing, or cognitive reframing. That is another way of managing the stress. So we'll discuss in detail later. And there are these coping strategies are also categorized into different forms, into different times. That is, the coping strategies are classified broadly into different categories. One is appraisal focused coping, emotion focused coping, problem focused coping, and solution focused coping strategies. So these are the classifications, different categories. Then what is this emotion focused coping? Emotion focused coping. So emotion focused coping, it is making an attempt. It is making an attempt to reduce the tension, to reduce the stress, to reduce negative emotions. That means the emotion focused one, it focuses on negative emotions. It is to reduce negative emotional responses. It is to reduce negative feelings associated with stress, like fear, depression, anxiety, frustration, etc. This type of strategy is most applicable when the source of stress is outside the personal control. So when you cannot, or when the problem is not within the control of the person, or when the person cannot control the problem, when you cannot control the stressful situation, then this type of strategy will be more useful. That means we are focusing on the symptoms of the stress. That means we are focusing on the negative emotions and we are reducing the intensity of the emotions, either sadness or fear, etc. It means we are not focusing on the problem. This indirectly it means cause of the stress is not solved. You see, we already discussed the sources of stress, different causes of stress, different sources of stress. The emotion is the consequences. When there is a stress, emotional responses will be there. That means in the emotion focusing coping strategies, the individuals are trying to reduce the intensity of the emotions, that is negative emotions. But individuals are not making attempts to solve the cause, are not addressing the source of the stress. They are not addressing the problem of the stress. So that is why there is another approach or another strategy that is called problem focused coping. In this category, the cause of the stress, the source of the stress is attacked or addressed or solved. That means individuals have to make an attempt to address the source, to address the cause of the stress. That is why it is called problem focused coping. Focus on the problem, not on the emotion. So focus on the problem. Once the problem is solved, automatically the effects, emotional consequence of the stress will also be reduced or solved. So this is one thing. And there is another one is solution focused coping strategy. It focuses on the solution. There are times we can do nothing to change the situation, but often we find an opportunity to take an action and change the circumstances. These are types of solution focused coping strategies can be very effective for stress relief. Generally, a small change is all that's required to make huge shift in stress reaction. So in such situation, one change can lead to other changes so that chain reaction of positive change is created. So a less stressed mind can easily choose the most beneficial course of action. So what are the techniques that come under this category? That is solution focused techniques, solution focused techniques to cope with stress. These techniques are all these techniques are required to cope with stress or to manage the stress. There is one is time management. When one feels overwhelmed by busy schedules, when person is busy, so this type of time management techniques, can you apply time management techniques, we'll be able to solve the problem of over schedule or busy schedules or conflict resolution. Strategies to mitigate the stress in a relationship. So the emotional focused, this one, emotion focused coping. We have already discussed that. You know the meaning of it. And what are the strategies? What are the techniques that the individual who is facing stressful situations or the individual who is experiencing stress and the individual who is under chronic stress, what kind of strategies the individual can employ? That is one is reframing. That is a cognitive restructuring. Cognitive restructuring. That is changing the ways of thinking, changing the thinking pattern. All of us have certain distorted thinking, distortion or distorted thinking that is harmful. For example, one that type of thinking, there are many distorted thinking are there, many types of distorted thinking are there. One such type is black and white thinking. That means only two extremes, either this extreme or that extreme. Either it should be a black or it should be a white. There is no other color. Once we have this, or otherwise, it is also called all or none. All or none. The one way of thinking is I should have all. I should get all the benefits. Or if I am not able to get all the benefits, I don't want this. None. I don't want anything. That means all are or. All are or none. That means if you want 10 fruits, you must get 10 fruits. That person is not, will not adjust to have 8 fruits or 9 fruits or 5 fruits. He should, he has the idea that he should have all the 10 fruits. What is the other way? If it is not possible, I don't want anything. I don't want any fruit. It is not possible. You have to make an adjustment in between. Instead of 10, we can have 4, 5, 6 like that. That means for this type of people, there is no middle way. There is no middle road. There is only this extreme and this extreme, that extreme. There is no other way. That is why it is black and white. No other color is there. They don't accept. They accept only white or they accept either black. Other colors they don't accept. That means for this type of people, there is no midway. There is no midway. Only two extremes, either this extreme or that extreme. That type of people will face this stress. They will have a lot of stress. So that means under the category of cognitive restructuring or reframing, we have to change our thinking pattern. I have to change our ways of thinking. By doing so, you will be able to adjust to the situation and you will be able to solve the problem and will be able to have better relations in the family or office or where. So this is cognitive restructuring is an important thing that one has to apply. So that I told you only the distorted thinking. I gave you only an example. There are many examples are there. And journaling. Journaling is an emotional outlet for stressful feelings. Writing in a book, journaling is an emotional outlet for stressful feeling. It enables to brainstorm solution to problems. Journaling has benefit of positive feelings, wellness, and stress management. So this cognitive restructuring I told you, that is reframing, it will include positive thinking and focus on strength, looking for opportunities, making changes. So another one is meditation. This meditation is a common thing that can be used. And the problem focused coping strategy we already discussed. And what type of techniques that they can use? One is analyze the situation. See, as far as this problem focused coping strategy, there are eminent psychologists who have done much work on stress. There is Folkman and Lazarus, and they have done much work on the emotions. They identified three problem focused coping strategies. The psychologist by name Folkman and Lazarus, they identified three problem focused coping strategies. What are they? One is information seeking, taking control, and evaluating the pros and consequences of action. Evaluation of prospectives and consequences, pros and consequences of action. So under this, the person can do, they have to analyze. We identified the problem. The problem has to be analyzed. Analyze the problem, analyze the situation, pay attention to all details in detail. So work harder to find alternative solutions. So we have analyzed the situation and many alternatives are there, alternative solutions, and apply the most suitable solution. So this four problem post technique, this psychoanalytic theory propagates the defense mechanism or powerful coping strategies to deal with stress. So some of the techniques that one can uh, employ or use here is to cope with stress. To cope with stress is humor. The humor. The Freud, a well-known psychoanalyst, advocated that humor is an excellent defense strategy. Laughing, that is a laughing. You have to laugh. Humor. When one laughs during a tough situation, please understand, when one laughs during a tough situation, then one can feel free of associate stress. The individual highlights the comic aspects in a stressful situation. Laughter and humor creates a sense of relief of stress. So when you are under stress, so laughing one of the strategies or humor, that is one of the strategies that you can employ. Another one is affiliation. It means instead of being alone, so usually the people under stress, consciously or unconsciously, they will try to be alone. They have the feelings of loneliness. So instead of being alone, they must be with people. That is affiliation. That means we have the people, the person who is under stress should talk with friends, talk with their colleagues, their family members, and should have good social network. They share their problems with them. So the uh, this affiliation involves dealing with stress by befriending or finding social support. So we need social support. You must be with people, and social support we already discussed. And positive appraisal of the situation. So any situation, any problem, they'll have good and bad. Any job, any place, any person will have negatives and positives. No job, no person will be 100% positive or 100% negative. Some certain ratio will be there. So that means when you are appraising the situation, we have to focus on the positive aspects of the person. But unfortunately, some of the person, they focus more on the negative aspects. For example, there are two persons or two friends. One person has done 8 good things out of 10. Out of 10 times or out of 10 times, he has done 8 good things. And he has done only 2 bad things. The other person, it is a tendency, ignoring all the good 8 things, the person focus on the 2 bad things or negative things. So in this situation, when you focus on the bad or negative things, what will happen? Not a naturally your feelings will be, you will have negative emotions. Instead of that, if you focus on positive aspects of the person, the problem will be, the seriousness of the problem will be lessened. It is applicable to wife and husband, or colleagues, or boss and subordinate in office, and parents and children. Anyway, so instead of focusing on negative things, few negative things, we need to focus on larger aspects of the positive things. And there is other one, there is solution focused coping. What is this? These are times we can do nothing to change the situation, but often we find an opportunity to take action and actually change the circumstances. This type of solution-focused coping strategies can be very effective for stress relief. So for this, we already told you that we have discussed solution-focused techniques, some of the solution-focused techniques of time management and conflict resolution. So this conflict resolution, so the conflicts are also natural. The conflicts can occur between the individuals, between the groups, between the nations, between the states, or between the companies, between the organizations. Conflicts arise for various reasons. At the same time, conflicts with the same individual. How is it possible? Conflict between two people or between two companies or two groups. But there is a possibility that conflict will be within oneself, either to do this or not, this or that. Then, for example, within the individual, for example, a person has got appointment orders from two equally good companies. A software engineer is there, has got offer letters from two equally good companies. Their stature, their working conditions are more or less similar in all respect. Pay, package, and other things are similar. He has received two offer letters from two equally good companies. Now there is a problem for the person to select. There is a conflict. Which one to choose? Which one to choose? So this type of, there is internal conflict within oneself, and conflicts between two groups, I already told you. And these conflicts are also natural. The human beings, definitely they will have the conflicts. They will face the conflicts, either at home or at office or in society. But one has to know, one has to have the skill to resolve the conflicts. How to resolve the conflicts? When we when we know that the conflicts are common, we face those conflicts in our day-to-day life. So one must have the strategies or skills to resolve the conflict so that they will have they can lead a healthy life. So now we'll discuss what are these conflict resolution techniques. When you talk of the conflict resolution technique, there are two important psychologists who have worked and researched much on conflict resolution. That is, one is Kenneth Thomas, and other one is Ralph Killman. Killman. This is simply called Thomas Kilmann model of conflict resolution. Thomas and Kilmann model of conflict resolution. So it was developed during 90s. So this model or this type of resolution technique or this has two dimensions. One is assertiveness. Assertiveness means it is a concern for self, and individuals attempt to get what they want. It is self-concern. In other words, against this, there is other dimension. There is cooperativeness. Cooperativeness. Cooperation is one, assertiveness is the other one. Assertiveness is self-related. It is concern for self, individual, self-benefit or own benefit. And cooperation dimension. The other dimension is cooperation. One dimension of this model is assertiveness. Another dimension of the resolution, this technique is cooperation or cooperativeness. That is, it means it is concern for others. There are two things: concern for self, concern for others. These two things are involved in this model of resolution, conflict resolution, that is devised or formulated by Thomas Kilmann. But these things, under that, this technique has different styles, different ways of resolving the issue. There are five main styles or five main ways of resolving a conflict, five ways of coping, addressing the problem, addressing the conflict. What are those five styles or five ways? Is one is competitive, another is collaborative, third one is compromising, and other one is avoiding. Fifth one is accommodating. Accommodating. That means this Thomas Kilmann resolution, conflict resolution technique, this broad technique, has five ways. They have identified five ways of resolving the conflict. So let us discuss each style of resolving the conflicts. We start with the competition. Competitive style or competitive way of being resolving the technique. See, it is more assertive. The assertiveness element is more in this category. That means concern for self is higher. This competitive strategy involves higher concern for self and lower concern for others. That means I should I should get more, other person should get less. He wants more benefit at the cost of others. That is why it is called concern for self is higher, concern for others is lower. That is the that is called as competitive strategy. So here it is also called, it is based on the principle win-lose philosophy. Win-lose philosophy. I should win, other person should lose. Win-lose. I should win, others should lose. That is the basis on which the people make an attempt to resolve the problem or the conflict. So when the person adopts this type of technique, what they do, they argue more. They accuse the other person. They like this. They shout at other person. They show supremacy or dominance over others. Say they operate at the position of power. It can be position or a rank or expertise, etc. This technique be appropriate, this type of technique, when this type of technique can be used to resolve the conflict so that we can reduce the intensity of the stress. It is in situation when all other do not work or other techniques are less effective. When the other person is trying to exploit the situation selfishly, when quick resolution is required, when you want quick resolution, they use force. So forcing is justified in this technique. They force the other individual to accept. For example, if there is a conflict between the boss and subordinates, and there is a conflict with the husband and wife, they force the other person to accept the solution. Some type of force will be there. But at the same time, it may negatively affect the relationship with the opponent in the long run. So forcing the other individual to yield to the solution, in the long run, it affects the relationship between the persons, either at home or at office, because solution is forced on the other person. They force the other person to accept the session or the solution. Other one is collaboration. What is collaboration? It is based on the principle of win-win, win-win principle, win-win philosophy. What is this? Under this strategy, both the persons are benefited. Both the parties are benefited. Not one person winning and another person losing. No, it will not happen. This strategy is based on the principle win-win. Both parties will win. Both parties will get benefits equally. So this is a good way healthy way of resolving the issue. It meets the needs of all people involved. The needs of the two persons or needs of the two parties are solved or met or satisfied. That means the both people they cooperate with each other. This style is useful. When it would be useful? When the needs of the both the parties are too important to be compromised. When interaction and cooperation are very important for goal attainment. When the goals of both the parties differ but potentially compatible. Other important thing is when the long-term relationship is important. So this advantage of this, the relationship between the two persons or between two groups will be cordial. They will be positive. And the other one is compromising. What is this compromising? It is find a solution that will at least partially satisfy everyone. Partially satisfy everyone. That means it is based on the principle give and take. You give something and take something. I lose something, you lose something. I take something, you take something. So this means this involves give and take interaction. So both the parties should lose, both the parties should gain, at least to the extent possible. So this is both assertive and cooperative. It is neither cooperative or collaborative as other one, or it is not competitive. It has a characteristics of both collaboration or cooperation and also competitive or competition. So this is this can be used to reach temporary settlement or complex issues. When the issues are very complex, when you can't solve the problems in another way, this is the one way to solve this. When the involved parties do not know each other well or have not yet developed a high level of mutual trust, when collaboration and competition do not work, the earlier techniques, when they don't work, this has to be, this can be employed. Compromising technique, a strategy can be used to resolve the issue or to resolve the conflict. This is also called lose-lose principle. Lose-lose. What is this lose-lose? Other one is win-win. Collaboration or cooperation is win-win. Both parties win. What is this one? It is lose-lose. Both parties lose. I lose something, you lose something. So that problem will solve. That is when the discussions will proceed. I give something, you give something, like that. And accommodating. There is another strategy that can be used by the person to resolve the conflicts. This style indicates willingness of one person to meet the needs of others at the expense of one's own needs. It is based on the principle lose-win. One person will lose, other person will win. The person who initiated this discussion to solve the issue, that person will try, they may lose something and give something to others. That is lose-win. The person is not assertive, but is highly cooperative. One is not assertive, one is not selfish, he is not trying to get benefit for them, but he is trying to get benefit for others. This style is characterized by high concern for others. That means concern for others is high, concern for self is low. Low self-concern, high concern for others. That is these are the characteristics of this accommodating strategy. So I repeat the characteristics of the accommodating strategy, or low concern for self, high concern for others. High benefit for others, low benefit for self. And other approach is avoiding. Avoidance is one strategy that can be used to resolve the issue. That means denying this. In this style, people seek to evade the conflict entirely. Instead of solving the conflict, they will ignore it. They don't solve the problem. They don't solve the conflict. They just avoid it. They ignore it. It means indirectly conflict is continued. It is temporary in nature. It can be used for temporary benefits. In the long run, it will not work. One has to find a solution to resolve the issue totally. So it is treated as it is a weak and ineffective approach. It is a withdrawing state. That means people, as I told earlier, they will ignore, they will withdraw from the situation. So this is appropriate when this technique is appropriate. This technique is appropriate when the issue is trivial, when the issue is very small one, and not worth making an effort. So with the issue is a very small thing, why should you waste much time on it? Why should you waste energy on it? When the conflict is trivial in nature, very small one, when there is no chance to satisfy your concern,